So, let's jump in here. First off, we're going to jump into what is Google+. And I'll start this presentation by saying that I'm not going to spend too much time here going into some of the technical details on posting and growing your network and some of the functionality within Google+. There are ample resources and great tutorials for that kind of area, but I'm really going to focus on some of the overarching features and themes of Google+, and where it really makes sense in a business context. You'll see as we go into this, it is also one of these networks that does transcend both our business and personal lives, and I believe it is a platform we can use to tie those two pieces together. So, what is Google+? Here you are. Apologies, I made you green. I'm trying to be culturally aware. And what you may already have is something like a Facebook presence. You may be on Twitter. You may be on maybe other social networks, perhaps more that are of interest to you, or perhaps that are more regularly used in your particular geography. At one level, Google+ is another social network. So it's one other place, and it may raise the question, is this one other place I have to think about participating in? I don't have that much time in the day, and there seems to be that some of these platforms can, whilst they are useful, they definitely take up time. So Google+, is it just another place for me to participate? At one level, yes, Google+ is another social network, and let's just spend a few minutes just talking through how the similarities it bears with other social networks out there. So, for instance, it's a network. It connects you to other people, to other folks. And to do that, it has a network that you build, and here I'm flashing up, this is my profile. Once you've registered on Google+, you can see yourself, you have your name, you can say where you work, you can say where you went to school, and the area I've circled here is the network. So, as with other social networks, you have people that you're following or that are in your network that you've reached out to, and you also have people that are following you and have reached out to you. Like other social networks, beyond just building a network of people that you may have contact with or an interest in, you can also use Google+ to communicate with folks and for them and to see how they are communicating with you. So again, jumping back over Google+, screenshot, here you can see using the Compose window or the Compose button, which is available from many pages, but especially from your home page and your profile page, the ability to share your status, anything that you're working on immediately. So, we've seen a little bit about it. It has some of this common functionality. It has a network. It has a way in which to communicate. Let's get into some more interesting area in terms of how does it differ from other social networks. First up, unlike Facebook, Google+ doesn't ask for the connections to be synchronous. The people you follow do not have to follow you back. So for instance, you can get onto Google+, you can set up a network, and you may see that you can follow 1,000 people, maybe in a couple of days. And by doing that, you have availability to see what they're posting, but they do not have to follow you back. Once they follow you back, they will see more of your communications, but it is not a network such as, say, we see this with Facebook and also with LinkedIn, where you have these networks where, in order to make a relationship, both parties have to agree. Now, that has a couple of implications. One is that there's a concept of celebrity that you'll see on Google+, which you may also see on Twitter, but you won't see so much of on Facebook. And also on LinkedIn, in that, for instance, you will find folks, it could be people in the mainstream media, but let's say in our world, in the technology world, you'll find numerous folks that you can follow that have a huge following, and in order to see what they're posting and to be involved with their thought leadership, they don't need to follow you back. Second point here is that it's also good for news I'd contend one of the main reasons why Twitter has become such an effective news distribution tool, say rather than Facebook, which has a much better, bigger network, is the fact that it's through Twitter you can converse and you can send information which goes way beyond your network and the people that have elected to join your network. And the same is true of Google+. What you post to Google+, when you post it publicly, it goes out to everybody. There's concepts such as hashtags, which are heavily used in Twitter, and this allows people to find your content who may not be in your network. Another point here is that unlike Facebook, Google+ also allows you to easily put together groups of folks with whom you have a separate interest. So this is where it really gets into this area. It may be your personal and your business life. It may be you're interested in different topics such as big data or social business or mobile. It could be that you want to separate, you want special communication that you have with your family or with other groups, or even it could be even co-workers and colleagues or indeed partners. What you can do is you can group them into similar areas. You can set up circles, and you can use those circles to both see what information that particular group is posting, and you can also use those circles in order to share information with those particular groups. Now, I know Facebook does have this functionality, but I would contend that within the Google+ world, it's more on the surface, it's on the glass, and it's also realized in a way which makes it easier for you to manage. And here I'll just show you, this is how you do some of that management of your circles, the concept that exists in Google+. So here you can see this is my screen. At the top it gives me a list of all the people in my network. I can search across those people. And the search could be by folks that may be attached to an organization, or it could be just purely by their names. And what you can see below in the second half of my screen is the circles. So these are the groups that I've created, and I have different groups. I have a group of the IBMers that I follow. You can see I've also got my family following. I've worked on various projects. I'll share with you, I work and have worked in the past mentoring students from different parts of the US, and when I ask them what network they would like to use, quite often Google+ comes up, so we've used this in the past, and it's been a good way where I can create a circle for any group of students that I'm working with. And actually, by the same token, we've also done this for faculty as well. So moving on, talked a little bit about why Google+ isn't like Facebook. Now, why isn't it like Twitter? One of the big differences I'd suggest is that within the Google+ environment, it has a much better interface for posting long-form content. And what do I mean by long-form content? I'm talking about those longer blog posts. It could be videos, it could be photos, other information that goes beyond the 140-character limit, let's say, of Twitter. And I am aware of the fact that Twitter, especially through its web interface, will bring in photos, will bring in other media. But for instance, one of the key advantages, or one of the features of Google+ that was picked up when it came out was the idea that, well, you could, in theory, if you hadn't started a blog, or if maybe you were thinking of changing your blog platform, or even if you hadn't been thinking, it could be a place in which you could switch over and start doing what you had been doing, say, blogging on WordPress or in another environment. You could, in theory, start doing this exclusively on Google+. And I'll show an example of that. This is a guy called Robert Scoble, who many of you may be familiar with. He his fame came, I think, roughly 10 years ago now, maybe even a little bit longer than that, where he was definitely one of the first corporate bloggers. The blogging had been around. It had been used mainly for different forms of information sharing, but he was somebody that had really pushed to say that organizations or individuals within organizations could use blogs to communicate in a way which hitherto hadn't been possible. And And Robert Scoble, since that time, he's been blogging prolifically. He's very active across pretty much every social network. But he was one of the folks that has come out and said when Google Plus first came out that, well, I could post a lot of my content here rather than using my own blog. I'm not sure, in every case that makes sense. There may be still reasons why it makes sense to keep your blog, but I do want to highlight the fact, and you can see that here, that the platform itself supports pretty much the posting of long-form content. You can see here there's something which equates to a blog post plus a video, and all the comments, everything else can combine below this in a way which you may see on a popular blogging platform right now. Now, moving into some of the other functionality Google Plus has out there, I'd say one of the most popular components within its toolkit is the video piece. Now, many of you may be aware of the fact that Google owns YouTube and has been involved in the video space for quite some time now. But what it has done is it has taken some of that expertise it has in video production, in video distribution, and in having a video platform, and brought that into Google+. So what you have is, at this point, is a fairly robust platform which I'd suggest is particularly good for doing things like panel discussions, or, for instance, pulling together where you may have 2 or 3 other individuals that you'd like to talk with and you'd like to get to know. For instance, there are other platforms out there, such as Skype, which also has video chat functionality, where Skype is great when you're doing, say, if you're doing an interview one-on-one with somebody else. I'd suggest Google Plus really comes into its own when you're looking at more of the kind of panel discussions. One other feature, and I think this is general for the video chat piece I would bring up, is I think many of us in this organization spend some of our time on coverage and talking to partners and building up relationships. And I think as many of you know that, especially when it comes to relationship handling, there is really no, I don't think there's any other mechanism that's as effective as meeting folks face-to-face, and especially at the beginning of a relationship, to have that initial time to actually see and touch, shake somebody's hand and to start that conversation off. But failing that, if that's not possible, then when you are starting engagements, it could well be that you could potentially look at using something like Google Plus for pulling together, let's say, a partner, if it's a new engagement, that you could actually then, rather than, you're going to be sharing a lot of emails or other forms of communication, but it could be a way for you all to at least see each other. And I'll say I've been doing this myself when I've been, for mentoring students, and it makes a significant difference. Even if it's just the first few times to just see them, makes a significant difference than, say, for instance, getting on the phone and trying to handle those kind of relationships that way. Further point in here is that, so I mentioned YouTube and Google's connection, but Google has also extended that connection from Google Plus to YouTube. So there is something called Hangouts on Air. They are specific, and you can't do this for a regular Hangout. You do need to set up front. You have to know that you want to record the Hangout, this video conference. And what you can do is then, effectively, just as we're recording a smart cloud here, the difference would be that within Google Plus, with the Hangouts, you have the option to actually record the face-to-face conversations that's happening. It's pretty robust. You can have people that you can drop in and out. You can do screen sharing as well through this mechanism. And I'd say one of the key advantages is that as soon as you hit stop recording, that video is automatically posted to YouTube if you've designated it as a Hangout on Air, one of these public-facing, if you've said you wanted to record this. And if any of you have ever done any of this before, you may know that we do have tools available that will allow us to record video and then to process that video and upload it to YouTube. But for those of you that have been through this, you may have come across the fact that workflow can take some time. You end up sometimes having to deal with codecs. You sometimes have to figure out why a video which looks fine when you're playing it on your local machine, once you upload it, maybe the sound moves out of sync. There can be any number of issues when it comes to taking a recorded video and posting it. So I would suggest this is one piece where it saves both time and some of those grey hairs. Here's an example. We'll get onto this one a little bit more later, but I just wanted to play up. Here's an example from our friends in the Big Data brand. They've been using Google Plus Hangouts for some of their video purposes, and here you can see they have the Hangout. It takes place on a Friday. They'll record it, and following the Hangout, it will appear on YouTube, and then as with any other YouTube video, they can then pick this up and they can post it to their effectively blogging interface, or distribute through other areas, through Twitter or through other mechanisms, and post that out across the web. So one other of the advantages of Google Plus, and here we're getting into the I'd say this is one of the key reasons why I think a lot of businesses have a strong interest in Google Plus, is the idea that Google Plus, this network, is part of it's owned by Google, which at this point in time at least owns one of the major, most significant global search networks that many of us turn to, and that still has a huge following. And as a result, there are some implications of how by being present on Google Plus you can make use of that, and you can have some of that benefit of obtaining some of that search traffic. I'll show one example here, and I'll talk through some others. So if you do have a blog, or it could be some other kind of site, it may be that you're published, maybe you're not using a blog, it could even be static pages. You'll probably realize, if you ever spend any time looking at your web metrics and your and if ever tried to answer the question, how do people find me, you may well see that you are already obtaining a significant portion of your traffic through Google search. And as you can see here, maybe somebody searches on a topic that's relevant, one of your posts comes up, and then those folks see your post halfway down the page, and they'll click on it, and that traffic then obviously shows up in your web referral logs. And you can say, okay, great, I know that I'm glad that Google can see my site, and I'm getting this traffic coming to me. Taking that a step further, Google Plus has a notion of what it calls authorship, which is basically if you have a Google Plus profile, if you associate your blog with that profile, then what Google will do is it will make that association, and it will make a linkage between some of your profile information in Google Plus and what it displays through its search. And in terms of making this linkage, I'll send out, I'll make sure that we've got a link to this in the notes after the call that gets distributed. But one of the but it isn't. There's a few steps you have to go through. I think Google is trying to make it so that it's not used, let's say, by for purposes which it shouldn't be used. And so you do have to. You typically either have to add a little piece of code to your own site, or add a post to your site so that it's clear that you actually own that particular property, and then you can make those linkages. And what will happen once you do that, for instance? So again, let's think of the same examples that we have our audience that are searching on this particular topic which your site could rank for. Now, what may happen, and what will often happen, is that when people search for that particular topic, when they see your link, it will actually have a thumbnail associated with it, which will be your profile, which will be a little profile thumbnail. What that means is that on a page, the Google search results page generally is pretty vanilla. It's a bunch of links and some text. What you'll now have is a situation where you may well be the only thumbnail on that page. So even though it may be that your ranking hasn't improved and you're still in the same position, you can see a traffic increase as a result of that. There is a further point to make here as well, that if some of these folks that are searching for this content just happen to be in your network and have somehow, they've seen you out there, they've reached out and they've made that connection with you, there will be some further information within the results page which will showcase, that will show how they actually interact, or it will show their connection with you. So, for instance, it could be that it will actually call out the individual that they'll, from their perspective, they'll say, well, Daryl's in your network, and it may even tell you which particular circle he's in, and that will help them to make that connection between your post, which is showing up in the Google search results, and potentially again has that opportunity for them to see that connection with yourself and to make that linkage and link through. So that's some of the key areas. I'll say that there is some other areas that we are seeing in terms of this linkage, and it could be even if you don't go to the degree of making this Google Plus authorship. If you don't blog, or if you just happen to have a Google Plus account, there will be, for the content that you've posted in Google Plus, we are seeing more and more of this content show up in Google. So now we've looked at how Google's like other social networks. We've also looked a little bit at how Google is different from other social networks. And now let's just answer the question, at this point in time, how many people are actually on Google+. Here I'm turning to some data from interesting organization, Global Web Index. They're one of the few organizations that conduct massive global research on search trends. Incidentally, I'll share that Sandy Carter, RGM, in her application for South by Southwest speaking slot has on a topic related to global cultural differences that you need to take into account when engaging with social. She has called on these folks on Global Web Index to be a partner on that talk, given that they have this great data. So a good source. And interesting, so what we're looking at here, a bunch of bubbles. I know it might be a little bit small. Let me try and explain this. So starting with the left-hand side, what you can see is that we have the overall account ownership. So this is the number of folks, This is the number of folks that have that are registered on each of these platforms. And by far you can see Facebook excels with about 850 million, over 850 million accounts. And just so you're clear, this data is first quarter 2013. Google Plus, 602 million accounts. And Twitter has 476 million. So by far, Facebook leading in terms of number of accounts. When it comes to actual visits in the last month, whereas Facebook has had a lot of people that have actually just, and this visit means somebody that's just went to the site. They don't necessarily have had to do anything with it, but at least have viewed it. Facebook comes in with a respectable 778 million. But here's where it gets interesting, where you can see with Google+, the numbers show that you've got this 1.1 billion folks that have actually visited there. And there are asterisks here, and I think a key point here is the fact that what this means that Google Plus is now sort of sewn in across a number of Google services. So even for folks that aren't specifically on, let's say they don't necessarily go to the exact URL for Google Plus, they have interacted with it. It could be through the search. It could be through even Gmail has integration with Google Plus. It could be through, and increasingly we're seeing this with YouTube, where even in the last few weeks, Google has made some link, has increased the connection between Google Plus and YouTube. And I think if any indication, Google's only scratched the surface in terms of what it can do for its. What it will do, I think what it will do with the service is that it can apply this social layer which it has in Google Plus across those. So for instance, we may see some increases in terms of Gmail functionality and the way in which that relates to Google Plus. I think also on the document side, and collaboration side, that where we have Google Docs, I think we'll see further we'll see some more instances there of a tightening of the linkage, where Google Plus really becomes this effectively the glue that holds a number of Google services together. I won't go too much into the rest of these numbers. As you can see, Twitter, albeit important, still, the numbers are smaller than what we're seeing across these other major networks. And one thing I would say there is that whilst Twitter, I know we put a lot of effort into Twitter, and I still maintain that makes sense given Twitter's focus on both news plus business. I think Google Plus, these numbers would suggest that Google Plus is also an interesting platform and one we shouldn't ignore. And in some instances it dwarfs Facebook, and although the Facebook numbers are large, they're not always that useful for us, given that a lot of that engagement may be around personal conversation.